Hello everyone, welcome to ABC Interactive English. I'm Mike.
I'm Kim.
And today it's Good Table Manners Part B. So we're going to be looking at Emily and Foster, our characters from yesterday. This time though, they're talking about good table manners in Taiwan or in Asian countries, right? Which of course are different. Yesterday we looked at more the Western style, and we have a lot of utensils, knives and forks and spoons in fancy formal Western dinners, and it can be confusing. Working from the outside in, that is a good tip. Now here, you have fewer utensils, right?
Yes.
Maybe a spoon, chopsticks.
Maybe a little fork for fruit.
A little fork for fruit, but only probably one of those things,
yeah.
Each of those things. And of course, you might have the other chopsticks, which you get the food from.
Yes, the long serving
and put
ones.
it on your plate. So we'll talk about that, and it's a lot easier. But there is one thing about formal Chinese dinners, like wedding banquets, that I find difficult. It's not the number of utensils, it's the type. They have those really nice sort of white chopsticks, and they're really smooth.
Oh, yes.
And I always find that my food kind of squirts out, like when you try to grab the soap in the shower, and it squirts out, The cheap chopsticks you get, the cheap wooden kind, they hold the food much better.
But those smooth ones, there's nothing to grab onto it, so you end up trying to go for a piece of meat
and it's that chicken
escapes.
That's on the bone, and you're trying to chew it off. Or they have the pork rib, and you pick up the whole bone, and I'm trying to eat it, and it's trying to run away from me, and I'm trying to chew it off with my teeth. And then of course my wife's father looks at me like,
There's no dignified way to eat that.
It's very difficult. And also the Japanese chopsticks that get very, very skinny.
Oh, yeah.
Those can be challenging too. Now, you guys might have no problem with those, and you might be laughing at me, but hey, next time you're at a fancy Western dinner, you'll have all the knives and forks and spoons. So you see that no matter where you go, there'll always be some sort of table manners that might cause you problems, be confusing, or make your chicken go flying across the dining room and land in someone's lap. So yes, be careful of all that stuff. Let's check out Good Table Manners Part B. We're going to a Chinese wedding banquet. Gongxi, gongxi. Emily and Foster are at a Chinese wedding banquet.
What's this round thing on the table?
It's a lazy Susan. The food for the table goes there.
Wait, we don't get our own plates of food?
No, everyone shares the food. So you can't use your chopsticks to pick it up. It's not polite.
I see. What else isn't polite? I don't want to cause any trouble.
All right, so yes, Good Table Manners Part B. Our characters are returning, Emily and Foster. This time, though, they are at a Chinese wedding banquet. I guess you could probably talk also about a New Year's banquet, like a weiya type of banquet. But a wedding banquet, of course, when people get married, that's a wedding. And when we have a banquet, it's kind of a big special meal. It might have many courses. It might be a 2 or 3 hour dinner. And it's usually after or because of some kind of special event, like New Year's or a wedding or something like that. So a big formal dinner where table manners, remember, are probably a little more important. So let's check out the dialogue.
All right, so Emily starts off this dialogue. Now it's her turn to be unsure about what's going on.
Oh, right, because she's from a Western country.
Yeah, so previously Emily is Miss Manners and she knows what's going on, but now she doesn't. So she starts out and says, "What's this round thing on the table?"
It's a plate.
Oh. Emily didn't see that one coming.
She didn't see the plate. No, of course, it's not a plate. She would know what a plate is. She means that big round thing that turns around. It's in the middle of the table. And yeah, at Chinese banquets, they will have those. Most Western dinners, they probably wouldn't.
No.
Not in a formal dinner, especially. Anyway, so Foster tells her it's a lazy Susan. That's what we call that thing, a lazy Susan. And as he explains what the lazy Susan does, he says the food for the table goes there, right? And as you guys know, it spins around and you can get the food and then pass it along to other people without actually passing the dish.
But question.
Yes, question.
Who's Susan and why is she so lazy?
That's a very good question. Maybe we should look that up. But anyways, it's a very common thing to find here at a banquet, at a formal dinner. And as Foster says, the food for the table goes there. Now, Emily notices something that causes her to be a little surprised or even shocked.
That's right. She says, wait, we don't get our own plates of food.
Right. She sees the waiter or waitress bringing big plates of food, putting them in the middle of the table on the Lazy Susan. Of course, Western style, you would get your own plate with all the different foods on it just for you. So as Foster explains, no, you don't get your own plate of food. No, everyone shares the food. So, and here's the important part, so you can't use your chopsticks to pick it up. It's not polite. And also in the time of COVID, it's probably not safe.
Not good. Well, what's interesting is people here will use chopsticks to pick up food. I think we have a similar idea in the States, but it's just different. If you're using salad, and we have these things called salad tongs.
Right, or a big spoon or something.
Or a big spoon, yeah. So if it's more like a pasta sort of thing, you'd use a spoon or a giant fork. So it's the same kind of idea. You don't want to put something that's going in your mouth in the public food. That's gross. And also, it's not polite.
That's right.
So don't do it.
Yeah, if something is polite, that means you're showing good manners. This is something that other people would say, yes, that is the way to do things. That is not rude. Polite would be the opposite of rude. So it's polite to cover your mouth when you cough, when you sneeze, when you yawn, right? It's polite to do that. It might be rude to do it and not cover your mouth. Of course, when you're talking about getting food with your own spoon or fork, it's not polite. It's also not very safe or not very, here's a fancy word, hygienic, right? COVID, we're covering our mouths with masks. We're washing our hands. So I put something in my mouth to eat and then I put that in the same food you will eat from. It's not polite and also not safe or hygienic.
That's right, definitely not. Well, Emily says, I see. What else isn't polite? I don't want to cause any trouble.
Oh, that's a good question. She's trying to avoid trouble. She doesn't want to cause trouble. When you cause something, this verb means you make it happen. All right, it's because of your actions or what you did that something happens, or something else makes a thing happen. A broken light could cause a fire. If you don't look when you're driving or crossing the street, you could cause an accident. Because of your actions or because of one thing, other things happen. And if you're rude in a very formal sort of dinner or something, you could cause trouble.
Yeah, and you don't want to cause any trouble. That's pretty bad. So trouble is a bad or inconvenient or unfortunate sort of situation. So if you're really rude at a dinner, you might cause trouble. People will notice you and there will be some bad feelings. They might say, hey, stop doing that. Or you might make the people around you feel bad. That would be causing trouble. If you do something bad in the classroom, you can get in trouble. Another phrase we use for that. So you can get yelled at by your teacher, have to do a timeout, have to go outside the classroom, and then you would be in trouble, in a sort of bad situation.
Yeah.
So be polite.
Exactly. You don't want to make problems or make trouble for yourself. And of course, when we talk about making trouble, it's not a big problem, right? It's not like the police will come and you'll go to jail.
Oh, you in trouble then.
It's just something, you want to try to avoid or not have happen because, do the right thing. Let's take a break. We don't want to cause trouble with you guys. We'll take a break and then we'll be back with more from our dialogue.
Don't point your chopsticks at anyone and don't stick them in your rice bowl.
Okay.
Also, when you have the teapot, pour tea into other people's cups before your own.
All right, so we're back with more good table manner tips from Foster. He's the guy who knows how to do the right thing at a Chinese banquet, at a wedding banquet in this case, so that's what he is teaching Emily about. Here's another good bit of advice. Another way to be polite, don't point your chopsticks at anyone. Hey, you, I want to talk to you. Hey, that's a nice tie you're wearing, John. Don't use your chopsticks to do it. It's actually kind of rude to use your finger, too.
Yeah, you don't really
right?
point at people anyway, but especially with chopsticks, it's kind of weird.
Kind of rude to point in any way, but especially with chopsticks, imagine if there's food on the end and you're pointing at someone, you could throw your rice across the table, and that is definitely not polite. So don't point your chopsticks at anyone. And here's one I do know, and don't stick them in your rice bowl. You can stick them in when you're getting the rice out. That's okay. But he means, of course, stand them up so they're sticking out of your rice bowl.
Now he doesn't explain why, but do you know why?
Is it because of the temples and the burning?
Yeah, I heard because it looks like the incense, so that's kind of disrespectful.
But isn't that, I mean, is that a bad thing?
I guess, you don't want to make it look like something it's not.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I guess because people do put those sticks at the temple when someone dies or something, right? So, okay, I can see that. It is kind of handy.
It is, though.
And sometimes if you have the round chopsticks and you put them on the bowl, they roll off.
Just down the street,
Right. But yes, you might want to remind your Western friends that this is really something you don't want to do at a formal meal, right? Especially at a formal meal. So
now, he has no more explanation for Emily like we've just given you. So she just says, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Emily's not one to question things, is she?
No.
Okay.
She's not one to question.
Well, make sure that you don't point your chopsticks at anyone. And if you want to describe pointing, it's basically just this action. You should try not to point at people. It's really, really rude. Don't point. Okay? Don't point anything. Not your chopsticks, not your finger, not your spoon, not your fork. Nothing.
That's right. It can be okay to point if you're showing someone where to go. You can point, oh, the bus stop is over there. That would be okay. And of course, anything else that you have in your hand that kind of sticks out. You could point your pen. Police officers might point their gun at someone. So it's almost like you're making a line from what is in your hand, your finger, your chopsticks, your pen, and you're sort of making this line between that to something else that you're trying to, get people's attention on or something like that. And yes, don't stick your chopsticks in your bowl of rice. Or bowl of noodles too, right?
I think so. Any bowls,
It would be anything, like that. When you stick something, basically you put the end of it in somewhere so that it stays there so it doesn't fall out, all right? So you might stick a pin into the wall if you want to put up some paper on the wall or something. You might stick that in there. Another thing, you don't want to stick your finger in your eye. That would be a bad idea. But if you're taking your temperature, you might stick the thermometer under your tongue, right? So you, again, kind of like with pointing, you have something in your hand, it kind of sticks out a bit, and you're putting it into something else. All right, back to Foster. Another good tip. This is about drinking. Also, he says, when you have the teapot, pour tea into other people's cups before your own.
And especially I've heard people who are older than you should get served first, right?
Oh, interesting. And I think in Korea and Japan, they have similar traditions about something like that. The younger person always pours for the older person. And in this case, I would say that that's polite in many ways too. But then again, I might fill my cup and then fill yours after I look around a bit. But this is kind of saying look around first and then fill theirs and then fill mine. But again, it's just nice to help other people out.
It is,
When you see that their cup is empty, pour some water or tea or whatever into their cup or their glass.
So we have this word pour, which is used to describe when you take a glass, a tea kettle, a teapot, or any kind of thing that you put liquid in, and you kind of slowly tip it over until the liquid comes out and goes into another container or the ground if you're watering plants, something like that. So it's just that slow tipping action and the liquid coming out. So you want to take your teapot, take everybody else's cup first, and sort of pour the tea in there.
Exactly, in a careful, clean way so that you don't make a mess and spill things all over the place. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, there you go, guys. Some other good tips there for a wedding banquet, the right table manners to have. These ones you probably know more about. Yesterday we had some good tips about all the different utensils. This is just the beginning, though. We have one more day to look at, so come on back and join us for that. Until then, take care and all the best to you and your really wonderful table manners. Ta-ta.
Oh, ta-ta.
Emily and Foster are at a Chinese wedding banquet.
What's this round thing on the table?
It's a lazy Susan. The food for the table goes there.
Wait, we don't get our own plates of food?
No, everyone shares the food. So you can't use your chopsticks to pick it up. It's not polite.
I see. What else isn't polite? I don't want to cause any trouble.
Don't point your chopsticks at anyone and don't stick them in your rice bowl.
Okay.
Also, when you have the teapot, pour tea into other people's cups before your own.
Hi， 大家好，我是 Stephanie。那我们今天一样从单字开始看。第一个呢是 polite， 形容词，有礼貌的。Helen is a polite girl who always says please and thank you. Helen 是个有礼貌的女孩，总是把请和谢谢挂嘴边。第二个单字呢是 cause， 动词，造成。The blue light from your phone can cause problems for your eyes. 手机的蓝光会导致许多眼睛的问题。第三个单字呢是名词 trouble， 麻烦。Her son got into trouble at school. 他儿子在学校惹麻烦了。另外 trouble 呢，它很常以 be in trouble 或是 get into trouble 的样子出现，像是 The dog will be in trouble if it pees on the sofa. 如果狗狗在沙发上尿尿，就会遇到麻烦。最后一个单字呢是 point， 动词，把点点点指向。The man pointed his finger at the menu. 男子把手指向菜单。今天的第一个文法重点呢是 pick up， 捡起、拾起。像是我觉得现在有很多优质的山友去爬山的时候，他们都会带着塑胶袋去进山。我们就可以把这个现象呢造成一个句子。The hikers picked up trash along the trail. 健行的人沿着小径捡起垃圾。第二个重点呢是 I see， 我懂了，我知道了。See 呢在这里是明白、理解，这个用法可以单用，你也可以用 I got it 来作为替换哦，意思都不会变。最后一个重点呢就是 what else， 还有其他什么。我们在点餐的时候啊，有时候你点一道之后，服务生就会问你说 What else would you like？ 还想点什么吗？ else 表示其他、另外，那它需要放在疑问词的后面，像是例句里面的 what else， 或者是 who else， 还有谁， where else， 还有哪里之类的。除此之外呢，它也可以放在不定代名词的后面，像是 nothing else， 或者是 somebody else。比如说 That cup isn't mine, it belongs to somebody else。 那个茶杯不是我的，它是其他人的。好，那这就是今天的讲解。See you。
Hi everyone, I'm Stephen.
And I'm Jamie.
We're going to play a game called Word Drop, where each of us has 3 words or phrases on these cards that we have not looked at yet. Then we're going to try to incorporate them into a conversation as casually as possible. And I'm going to start. All right. So my mom is a really good mom. She usually tries to teach me the right things or the right ways to do things. And one of the lessons that she usually teaches me is I should try to be nice to people, but it is really, really hard sometimes. Sometimes I can just be really rude and just forget to be polite.
Okay, I can kind of see that. I don't know why. I'm just kidding. Stephen's very polite. But I would say she probably just doesn't want you to form bad habits, right? Of doing things that are considered rude or just impolite in public, such as maybe if you stare at like strangers too long,
I do that all the time.
Or if you point at them with your finger, that's also very rude.
All right, because when you do rude things in public, like pointing at people, which I've done, or stare at people, which I do, it's just a habit. Like, it could really cause people to get angry. And then they might be like, what are you looking at? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at. And that makes them even more angry. And what that does, it ends up putting me in a situation where I could get in trouble.
You could get in trouble. That's actually something that I think we want to avoid. And that's why your mom probably told you, don't do these things that are considered rude because you could get in big trouble. And you don't want to be like, you don't want to get arrested or hurt or anything like that. So yeah, I think your mom wants to make sure that you didn't cause trouble.
Well, you know, sometimes it's just really hard. I feel like even without my mom teaching me these things, it's just in my nature. Sometimes I just sit there, I'm like, do I want to be boring and polite and nice all the time? Like, what else could I do? You know? Just what else?
Yeah, I guess it's hard to know what else to do, but maybe your mom was hoping that you would pick up good habits instead of bad habits, right? Like, she wants you to do your chores, do your homework, or I guess as an adult, like, go to work and like pay bills, right? Like, things like that. And so even just basic things, some things don't carry on from childhood, like homework or whatever, but some things do, like when you pick up after yourself or clean your room.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I just did.
Oh, very good. We're on our way.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, it's a good one.
See you next time.